So for years now, the twin jewels in Foxtel's particular crown have been its dominance in sport and its tie-up with HBO, which has brought it series like The Last of Us and The Penguin and House of the Dragon and so many more. But it looks as though the monogamous relationship between HBO and Foxtel might be coming to an end. And that rose all sorts of questions in my head. And when I have questions about television, there's only one man I turn to. From TV Blackbox, it's Steve Molk. Hey, Steve, what's the story here?
This is a really interesting one, Alex. Now, we know that the HBO agreement for Foxtel, as you said, is so important for non-sporting content. And
The stuff I want to
there
watch,
have,
let's be honest here.
yeah, sure. And look, I will offer that I'm equally interested in both, but I have a deep interest in drama. And there have been rumors swirling, look, almost year on year as Foxtel have re-signed that agreement with HBO to be their exclusive Australian content distributor, that HBO's streaming service, Max, was going to launch next year. Next year. What's happened in the past week is that the vice president in charge of Warner Brothers Discovery, that owns HBO, for the Asia Pacific region, was speaking at a significant media conference and said, "We are launching in Australia first half of 2025." Now, that is the first we've had it actually confirmed, but that's all we've had confirmed. There's been no press release, there's been no marketing, there's been no anything. Now, in part, that's because their agreement with Foxtel runs until at least the end of 2024. And we also don't know what that relationship is going to look like in truth moving into 2025.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only phrase that I've seen attributed to Foxtel is this word optionality. And
Mm.
the cynical part of me thinks optionality means we're having lots of meetings with HBO and backing up trucks full of money to say, please don't go.
Oh, and look, that's what they've been doing for the past few years. There's no
Yes.
question. Just another dump truck has turned up. I don't think, first of all, I wasn't sure that optionality was a word until I read that quote. And second of all, I don't think it means what they think it means. I mean, we'll find out for sure. What we do know historically, when these kinds of agreements end, and I think particularly of Netflix and Foxtel, before Netflix launched in Australia, any series that they had premiered on their service, in Foxtel's case, so I'm thinking Orange is the New Black and House of Cards, for the life of show, broadcast on both
Mm.
services. Like, so once
Mhm.
Netflix launched, of course they're going to have it. And
Yep.
then once for Foxtel, because they had shown the first, I think, first season of House of Cards, they got the rest of the series to play out at, obviously they're going to run it as similarly as Netflix did. So for HBO content, I would expect, and again, we don't know, there is zero detail. So, we're kind of leading into stuff. Things like House of the Dragon, The Last of Us, The Penguin, which has literally just launched in
Mm.
Australia on Foxtel on Binge. I would expect that life of show, those agreements live for those series on Binge, and you would assume Max when it launches. Now, the other thing we don't know, and I'm totally hypothesizing here, Max might launch in Australia. Max might launch as an add-on to your Binge service, similarly to Stan Sport. I subscribe to Stan, but if I want to access their sport content, I have to pay an additional fee on top of my subscription, but I can't access it separately. I have to have Stan and then Stan Sport. So it could be I want to get Max, I have to subscribe to Binge and then add the Max like plug-in or add-on, which now I don't know that that could be the case. Max absolutely could be launching by themselves. But what does it look like where Foxtel are calling for, claiming their optionality? Who even knows, mate?
Well, I mean, this does raise that kind of question of what does Foxtel look like for someone like myself? And cards on the table, and I don't think this is a surprise to too many people. I'm not that interested in the sports offering, and it's fine that it's there. I get that a lot of people love it, but
That's why
I'm
we
not
have
that
KO,
interested.
friend.
Yeah, I'm not that interested in the sports content, but what does an HBO-less Foxtel
Mm,
actually look like? And I mean, what does that leave Binge? Because they've already scraped a whole chunk of that content out into the lifestyle thing they now have as a separate
yeah.
subscription service. So suddenly Binge starts to look really bare bones, doesn't it?
I mean, yes and no. There is no question that they have built the majority of their premium drama business. This is Foxtel and, of course, now Binge on that relationship with the HBO content. Um, that said, Binge have been working very hard for the past 3 or 4 years to produce their own content. So unique Australian high quality content. I'm thinking stuff like Colin from Accounts. I'm thinking stuff like The 12, all really good and amazing that they've been delivering that. But let's say it was 10 series. 10 series does not a library make.
Mm.
And the depth of content that HBO have, and like you'd think of things like The Sopranos, you think of things like The Wire, all of these big, premium drama content stuff, peak TV content that live now in perpetuity as a part of a library. Fans might go, well, that's why I want that service, not just for the new things, which are important, but also for those back catalog things. And again, we are supposing HBO Max launch in Australia. Sorry, it's just Max launch in Australia,
Well,
and
I
all
was
of a
actually
sudden,
I was going to get to that because I
mm,
reckon, and again, I'm supposing here, I suspect when they launch, they might launch as HBO Max just because Max is kind of generic and it doesn't bring in that HBO association that a lot of people will have from, years of watching, for example, Game of Thrones, the whole, fuzzy HBO logo that I think a lot of people
sure,
know. They did it, for example, in, what is it, in Belgium. There's still
mm,
HBO Max to avoid market confusion. Would not surprise
sure.
me, but sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, no, it's a fair question. I don't know, and I actually don't know the benefit of them launching as HBO Max, given that while yes, there would be a percentage of the market that would go HBO is premium content, we need to have that. Depending what their marketing strategy is, if they just lean into Max, mate, like we've got Stan already. You think of actually what we're Stan, Hulu, Prime Video, of course, that connects into that. Netflix, like these brand things, you could call it Frank, honestly.
We've had
And
stranger brands. I mean, Presto, for example.
ta-da, there it is.
Yeah.
Look, I think that just on the name, it's going to be a big marketing push, however they deliver it, whether it is
Mm,
HBO Max or
sure.
HBO's Max. Um, as far as rolling out the content, what's it going to do to binge? There's no question. Assuming all of that back catalog stuff that is Max only content leaves the platform, leaves their library and goes over to Max exclusively, which if you're launching a streaming service, you want exclusive content,
You want to do
whether
a
it's
Disney
new,
Plus.
whether it's new or back catalog, you want it to be the only place to see this is here. That said, there of course is money to be made for some of that back catalogue if you spread it widely, for what it's worth. And it may be, again, hypothesizing that for a period of time, Binge retain access to a bunch of that back catalogue stuff, and it's only the new stuff. You want to see the new stuff, you have to get Max. And they have big, aggressive plans to roll out new content. They're always delivering stuff. And they are absolutely wanting to fight in the delivery of this launch to be, Netflix competitors who are in every country but four in the world. So for Max to launch in Australia, it's going to be interesting. For Binge, I think, look, some critics have been, it's going to be the end of Foxtel, the end of Binge, mate. It's not going to be the end of Foxtel or Binge. They Foxtel are positioning themselves to be sold. Let's be
Mm.
frank about that. And this is absolutely a bit of a misstep around that process for them. But we don't know what the nature of the deal with Max could be. That actually might still mean they're reasonably valuable in that context. Um, it I don't think it will signal the end of Binge. I think it will diminish Binge's library, and that would be a bad thing for Binge.
The one thing that HBO and Foxtel actually have in common that I don't know that a lot of people have considered is that their premium content at premium prices. Lots of people complain about Foxtel being kind of exy, Binge being kind of
Mm,
expensive. But if you look at the US prices, I mean, just doing some rough as guts currency conversions, the US price for HBO Max, oh, sorry, for Max, I should say,
yes.
uh, equates out to like the ad supported tier is about 15 bucks Australian a month. The
The
non-ad tier is about
ad-supported tier is $15.
yeah. It's like 10 bucks US.
Jesus.
And the non-ads tier is about 25 or so. And that's without GST because US prices don't list GST. So we could be talking closer to 20 and 30 by the time the tax comes into it.
Yeah.
And the question that raises in my mind is, I mean, HBO does great stuff, don't get me wrong, but
Hmm.
Steve, are you going to spend 30 bucks a month to watch just the HBO library on an ongoing basis?
Me or generic
Me
me?
or you or anyone?
Me, of course I am,
Oh yeah,
because I'm
you.
going to want to
Fair.
suss that out. Um, Generic me, hell no, right? Absolutely, the benchmark is going to be binge pricing or Netflix pricing in Australia. So they will need to be comparative and look, we are again
And then much
all of the
cheaper than the
detail,
US. We'll get lots
all
of
of the detail,
Americans VPN
right?
dodging into Australia.
Right? All of the detail is thin here. Could you imagine all of a sudden, for years we've VPN'd into America, just thousands of people VPN to Australia to get Max. Also, just quietly, we don't know with Max launching in Australia whether it's going to be a cut down version of the library because of all of the deals of the
Mm,
content that they have. We still live in this strange world where we are a global economy ostensibly, and Netflix are fighting this, right? Netflix only signs stuff now or makes stuff that they can show in all of their countries.
mm.
Whereas Binge, Paramount, Warner Brothers Discovery still make regionalized deals on content, a la the Warner Brothers Discovery Max content here in Australia on Foxtel. Now, playing out those agreements can take years to make sure that the library A to B. We already know that in some cases, the American Netflix library is very different to the Australian Netflix library because of some of those regionalized content deals. Undoing that stuff is like it's so
It's
intertwined and takes
gaudy
so
enough,
long.
yeah.
So there's those things. I mean, there are so many questions that need to be answered about what does the Max launch look like? Are they still going to partner with Binge and Foxtel? What does it look like from a cost perspective? As you rightly raised, they'd be crazy to go over and above Netflix or Binge's cost model. Um, will all of the content and it should just be rolling up a couple of hundred VMs in Australia on Amazon web services, and off you go, Max has launched. But actually, the marketing cost is going to be significant. And I would have thought that the amount of money that Foxtel back up to Warner Brother Discovery's driveway every year isn't going to equate to the amount of money they're going to have to spend. Are they going to do a telco deal where they, hook their wagon to someone like a Telstra, Vodafone, or Optus, and if you sign up, you get 3 months free Max or whatever? Um,
Actually, you just brought another thought to mind, which is app access and things like people with smart TVs. Is it going to
right?
work? If they sign up Telstra, will it work on a fetch box, for example? Uh,
Or they'll
if
fall
they,
over themselves to make
will
sure
it,
it
will it be
does. But
on
I hear you.
Hubble?
Oh, mate, mate, how is that, right? And if Hubble is going to function in its truest agnostic sense, hell yes, it would be. And you would expect at launch, where is the app going to be available? Well, guaranteed on your, device play stores for your mobiles and tablets. But you're right, when we stretch into boxes connected to TVs,
Mm.
yes, you'd expect it on your Fire Stick and your Chromecast. Fetch will fall over backwards to make sure that the app is available on their platform, particularly with the new OS they've just dropped. And yes, you would expect that Hubble are going to make sure that there is a Max app there. As much as that might be like drinking vinegar through a straw, they'd be, again, crazy not to make sure that that was available. Now, that's aside from the content library and those
Mm.
sorts of things. Smart TV owners are the ones that are going to be in a real pickle because, as we know, Alex, when it comes to smart TVs, once you buy your big black mirror, it's pretty rare that there are OS updates or things that feed through content. Unless the thing was already on it when you bought it,
They
you
don't
can be
tend to
pushing
add
her up the hill,
services. Yeah.
right? So it's why I recommend to people if they're going to buy a new TV, get for your money, get the best dumb TV you
Get
can,
the best
and
visual panel. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Plug something into it because that thing that you plug into it is going to be A, cheaper than the screen, B, if it breaks, cheaper to sort out, replace, but also absolutely more likely to be updated, to have things, features added to it, new apps when they launch in the
Hmm.
country, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, I think that the launch strategy for Max, which is clearly a secret, assuming that they've even got it and this guy didn't speak out of turn.
Well, it clearly
Um,
used to be a secret until there was a TV conference in, I believe it was Bali. Maybe he'd had a few too many drinks.
Mate, tough, right? How did I
Yeah.
get an invite to that? Yeah, look, it's going to be a very big watch this space situation because for the next 3 months, all of that content is absolutely Foxtel's, and that deal may even roll into early next year, which is why, first half of 2025 isn't January. It's probably closer to April. And even then, mate, it's elastic. H1 becomes
There is
H2
optionality, you could say.
optionality. H1 becomes H2 really quickly.
Hmm, indeed. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Thanks so much for your time, Steve.
My pleasure.